Do we have unrealistic expectations of Jewish or just spiritual leaders? So what's a fair expectation to have from like a rabbi or a Kabbalist or a sage? What's a fair expectation? So can we compare them to Moses and Joshua? Is that fair? Can we compare them to Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shimon? So first of all, I think it's important to recognize that originally a rabbi, what was a rabbi like? Moses would be fair, I think, to be called the first rabbi, probably, We had people that studied, that worshipped God and connected to God, like Melchizedek, king of Jerusalem, right? And Abraham. There was always people involved, I think, Shem and Aver, right? But Moses, I think we could say he's the first rabbi. Moses was the most humble man, he had the most humility from any man to ever exist. The Torah says that, I think, right? Moses was an empty conduit to receive from Hashem, completely submitting. And Moses is compared to the sun, while Joshua is compared to the moon. Joshua also completely submitted himself to his master Moshe. Moses received directly from Hashem. Joshua received directly from Moses. And that's how the chain of command, the transmission of Torah was passed down, with this type of relationship where the student submitted completely to his master, to the point where he didn't have his own existence. His existence was completely his master's existence. The prophets had that kind of connection. Elijah with his student Elisha, right? This is the relationships they had. They had complete humility and subservience to their master, and that's how they took information in and connection to Hashem and Torah. By being empty vessels, completely empty vessels, like the moon to the sun. They were just reflecting. It's hard to compare a rabbi today to that and say that when someone gets their smicha today, that's what's happening. That's not what's happening. Smicha was a very intimate bond where it wasn't just you passed a test, so I'm certifying you. It was I'm giving over my entire essence, my entire soul to you, and now that I'm going to go die, you're going to take over. That's what smicha was. We don't have smicha today. People want to say like, the rabbis today are rabbis, they're real rabbis. No, they're not. They're absolutely not real rabbis. They have no halachic authority, and they never got the transmission from Moses. That whole transmission, they never received it. That transmission, direct, soul to soul, master to student. They did revive it in Sfas a couple hundred years ago, a few hundred years ago. I just don't know if anyone today is still passing on the transmission from that, I don't know. So today's leaders, how much can you really expect of them? Also they're not on the level of the previous generations. Besides the fact that we don't have the smicha today, they're also just not on the level, they're not on the level, in the times of the Talmud, the least of them, meaning the least great of the sages, was able to revive the dead. Now, is that just because they had some secret wisdom, or was it a level of consciousness, a level of spirituality that they were tapped into? You know what I mean? So you can't compare a rabbi today to a rabbi from the Talmud or from before. And, if we were to meet a rabbi sage from 2,000, 3,000 years ago, you can just imagine, they probably had really good character traits. They probably had perfect character traits. You know what I mean? I've been let down by leaders, Jewish rabbis or whatever. And I think a lot of it has to do because I hold them to the high standard that I want to hold a rabbi to, comparing them to Moses. But I think it's not fair. It's not fair to hold them to that standard, but it's also not fair to call them rabbi. When you call them rabbi, you're saying pretty much you're equating them to Moses, and they're not nowhere near Moses. I've got qualms with famous rabbis, you know, famous people that a lot of you guys look up to. I see the people you post, the rabbis you post. Saying one in particular, I went to visit him in his home, and I asked him to take me with him to Morocco. I don't know if he said he'll take me or he just, you know, acknowledged that I was requesting to be taken to Morocco with him. But for a few years, I was really pissed that he never took me to Morocco, you know. I'm saying the guy takes plenty of people to Morocco. Could have taken me. But again, I realized that's like, I'm holding him to some kind of standard, like as if, I'm saying, would Moses take me to Morocco if he was going to Morocco? I don't know, but I feel like Moses wouldn't have let me feel let down, you know what I mean? If some child, young boy, 17 years old or whatever, who really needs to get to Morocco would really help him and is asking you to take him with you and it's not a big deal, you know what I mean? I feel like Moses would take me to Morocco, or at the very least would make sure I don't feel bad about not being taken to Morocco, not just like, oh, I don't care. You know, when I went back to try to like tell him, you know, I'm kind of pissed at you that you never took me to Morocco, his students threatened me with violence. They said, get out of here, you know, like, we'll beat you up if you don't leave, whatever. Because I was trying to get into his office and tell him, like, yo, I'm waiting for you to take me to Morocco, you know. I had another famous rabbi that you guys all know. I went to a synagogue where he prays. And I was trying to talk to him and tell him, like, you know, I need some help emotionally. I need some help with my family, my parents, you know. And, like, he, like, kind of gave me his attention for about, like, 30 seconds until he just started talking to someone else, you know. And that really let me down. And again, it's like, would Moses do that to me? Maybe Moses was very busy and he also wouldn't have time for me. But again, I think Moses would have made sure that I didn't feel bad. I didn't leave the situation feeling bad. Do you get what I'm saying? These rabbis are far from perfect. They don't have good character traits, a lot of them. They don't care about people. And they're, like, if they weren't being called rabbi, I wouldn't care. If some random asshole wasn't nice to me, who cares? But it hurts when you call them rabbi and everyone calls them rabbi, and it's like, we're elevating them to this position that they never earned the title, and they're far from being worthy. Do you get what I'm saying? Other rabbis too, bro. I'm saying a lot of rabbis have caused me to feel pain. And I think if they were just random people, I wouldn't give a shit. But the fact is, they're rabbis, they're spiritual leaders. They should be making sure that the people around them are being elevated and not hurt. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's an unfair expectation to have of them because they're not holy or pure. They're just random people. But we give them this title and we elevate them. So I think it's harmful to call someone a rabbi. They're not rabbis, bro. What makes them a rabbi? What makes them a rabbi?